Nick Richards is reportedly one of the most talked about big men on the NBA's trade market, but could he be on the move to Phoenix? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Let's take a look at how this can happen and why it might actually make sense for both the Phoenix Suns and the Charlotte Hornets to send the backup big to the desert. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Right now, only about 20% of you watching this are actually subscribed. So the other 80%, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. So here's the latest. We've got Evan Sidery saying, source, the Suns and Hornets have held preliminary trade discussions that would send Yusuf Nurkic and second-round picks for Nick Richards. Phoenix has removed Nurkic from the rotation as they seek a trade. Charlotte would send another player along with Richards in the deal. So we can get into the math of all of it. But yes, Yusuf Nurkic has been moved to the bench. The Phoenix Suns, they are 3-1 since moving Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic to the bench. That's where things currently sit in Phoenix. They've taken two of their starters, moved them to the bench, and so far the results, somewhat promising. I don't think it means that everything is solved in Phoenix, but they have made this move, exiling Yusuf Nurkic, who the advanced metrics were simply not good. They were not playing good basketball with him out there. And then Bradley Beal is now an off-the-bench scorer for the team. They are 3-1 in that stretch. Their lone loss coming to Charlotte. Ironically, Nick Richards plays for the Hornets, and the Suns will play the Hornets again today. What uniform does Nick Richards wear in that game? Does he just head across the hallway and throw on a Suns jersey? You never know. Crazy things happen in this league. But they've got wins over a depleted Philadelphia side. Atlanta, Utah is struggling this season. Atlanta's been good, though. I mean, that's a quality win, but they did drop a game to the Hornets as well. Then you've got today's game against the Hornets, and we'll see if the Suns can keep things rolling in the right direction. This is a team that right now is simply not living up to expectations in the NBA's Western Conference. You look at where they're at right now, they're simply not where anybody, especially the Suns, expected them to be. Taking a quick peek at the standings here. Right now, Phoenix still sitting in the Western Conference outside of the play-in. They have jumped up technically ahead of the Spurs, though they are tied there. They are the 11th seed right now in the NBA's Western Conference with a losing record of 18-19. However, that's not the only news here on a potential Nurkic trade. See, here's where it gets really interesting. John Gambadoro, who is about as plugged in as you can be in the Phoenix market. John Gambadoro, who does radio in Phoenix, said the Suns like Richards. He's athletic with a good contract. Not sure Charlotte would take back Nurkic. That's the sticking point for me too. But I do believe the two sides are working on this. There is a way to make it happen, but it's not a sure thing. So to me, that's great confirmation that this is legit, that these talks are indeed happening. Getting a guy like Gambo coming in to say this, to say that, yeah, this is something the two sides are indeed working on. That makes me think maybe there's some legs to this. Phoenix right now, incredibly motivated to try to make something work, to try to make some type of shake-up move, as difficult as that's going to be with their roster. Right now, they are a Tier 2 apron team. They've got so much money on the books. It's going to be tough for them to make moves because of all the restrictions that they're faced with. And this is what happens when you have a 3-star roster build. This is what happens. This is, everybody, this is the new CBA. This is what happens when you have a 3-star roster build, right? You've got to have your 3 players fit perfectly. And if they don't, you're going to run into some challenges. And I actually give the Suns a lot of credit for the pieces they've been able to add despite the new collective bargaining agreement, because they were able to get in kind of under the buzzer before the buzzer, right before all of the punitive rules kicked in, and they were able to add some pieces to their roster and then pay those guys like Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic. Essentially, they turned DeAndre Ayton into Grayson Allen and Yusuf Nurkic, but they've added some depth to this team. They did a nice job with Josh Okogie, making him kind of a big tradable contract at $8 million. But when you've got Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker on your books, it's going to be difficult to build out a competent roster around them. That's what the new CBA is all about. The new CBA, it's about punishing the big spending teams. It's about preventing teams from just buying their way to a championship, but it's also about essentially destroying super teams, better or worse. And I think you can make a damn strong argument that destroying super teams is actually going to hurt the NBA in the long run. Why? Because people want to see greatness. That's what people pay to see. It's greatness, not necessarily parity. But the NBA looks at the NFL, they get jealous, and they want parity. So the new CBA is designed to stop teams from stockpiling talent the way that the Phoenix Suns have tried to do. And so I think we're starting to see the negative effects of the collective bargaining agreement hitting this Suns side, where they don't really have the pieces built out on this team that they need to support Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. Essentially, everybody on the team needs to be able to defend at a very high level and shoot the three and be super switchy. That's what needs to happen on a team built around these three guys, particularly because defense isn't exactly the forte of any of these three. Kevin Durant was at one point a great defensive player, but that has certainly slipped as he's gotten older. So given the fact that all three of them are at their best putting the ball in the basket, there's going to be some overlap there. And Nurkic at $18 million, well, you just can't have it. Your margin for error isn't there. If Nurkic is not a positive on the floor and you're paying him $18 million, you're in big trouble if you're Phoenix. Because it's not like you've got 3-4 other guys that can make around that 18, maybe mid-level exception to 18 million or so to 20 million, somewhere in that range. I'm talking high-quality rotation level role players. The Suns can't have those guys because of the new collective bargaining agreement restrictions and because they've got Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker already on their team. So if Nurkic isn't living up to expectations, that's a huge problem, huge for the Suns. And they've got to figure out a way to get production out of that salary. Now, is Nick Richards the guy to do that? I think Nick Richards, he's a talented player. He's a very clear backup. That's what he is. He's a backup big, but also you look at his contract. Oh man, it's a thing of beauty. 27 years old, $5 million this season, $5 million next season, and $0 guaranteed for Nick Richards. Man, that is a team-friendly contract right there. Again, he's not a starter. He's got it. He has issues with his hands catching the ball sometimes. He's not, I'm not saying that this guy is fantastic, but he is a quality reserve. He is just fine as a backup big. And with Nick Richards, you're getting somebody in Phoenix that can at least, and he is extension eligible coming up in March, but you're getting a guy who is somebody that can help you out, somebody who could fill the role of Nurkic. Right now, Nurkic has been banished to the bench. You're not even putting him in games. So you now have somebody who can protect the rim a little bit, who can rebound a little bit, and costs way less than Nurkic. Now, the question for the Suns would be, what else can you get, right? What else gets thrown in? Could it be Cody Martin and Nick Richards? Could you do something like that? Here, let's mess around with a few trades here, because that's where Phoenix suddenly really takes a step forward if they can get this done. It's not just getting Nick Richards. It's not just replacing Yusuf Nurkic with Nick Richards. No, it's more than that. It's turning Yusuf Nurkic into ideally two useful players here. And the question then becomes, would Charlotte want to take on that contract? But let's say that's it. Let's say it's Cody Martin and Nick Richards. Remember, the Suns have to send out more salary than what comes back. And yep, that actually works. Cody Martin and Nick Richards to Phoenix. You get a wing and you get a big for Yusuf Nurkic. Now, do the Suns have enough draft capital to add into that? Because I do think the Suns are the team that would have to add draft capital to that. Well, they don't have a lot here, right? You've got a first rounder here that you could send as like a pick swap, maybe in 2026, but there's not a lot of draft capital here. Could you send multiple seconds? Yeah, potentially you could do that. Remember, the Stepien rule can come into play as well. There's already protections on the 2028 pick. Could you look at the 2030 pick? Could you look at the 2031 pick? We're probably talking the 2031 pick is what you'd have to do, because these other picks, you're going to have issues with trying to trade them. Or you can do second round draft capital. I'm sure that would be the preference of the Suns. But again, I think it goes back to simply, do the Hornets actually want to take on the next year of salary for Yusuf Nurkic? Remember, he's a guy right now, if you're looking at where he's at coming into this season, 18 million, 19.4 million next year. That's a lot. Look, if you're the Hornets and you think, okay, a new center combo of Mark Williams and Yusuf Nurkic, those are going to be our two bigs. We're going to get some second round draft capital, and we just improved Yusuf Nurkic just isn't being used correctly in Phoenix, and we think we can get more out of him. Maybe that's a reason to do it, particularly if you can add a couple of second-round picks to the mix as well. Maybe. Even then, though, that's a big salary to take on, or a decent amount of salary to take on for a guy that, I mean, look, there's a reason why the Phoenix Suns would prefer to turn him into Nick Richards, and they think that he's actually the better player, despite the fact that Yusuf Nurkic is literally making over 3 times what Yusuf Nurkic is making right now. Just not been a good season for him, especially if I am Charlotte, and let's say it is Cody Martin, because I can't imagine they're going to give up Saloon or Trey Mann or any of those guys. But let's say it is. That's the deal. Let's say it is Cody Martin. Look, he's $0 guaranteed for next year. So that's the other thing you'd have to consider if you're the Hornets is you're taking 2 guys who could be off your roster next season. You could clear those salaries off the books because they're not guaranteed, and trading them for a guy who has $19 million guaranteed for next year. So that's going to limit your future flexibility. If you're Phoenix, it's a home run. It's a home run if you're Phoenix. You're getting 2 guys where you have ultimate flexibility, no money guaranteed moving forward, and off you go. And you're replacing your big position with a guy that maybe you like better anyway. So I think a move like this does make a lot of sense for Phoenix. I don't know if the Hornets will be willing to do it, but it reminds me a lot of the Jimmy Butler conversation with Jimmy Butler and Phoenix. Look, Jimmy Butler wants to go to the Suns. No surprise, right? The Suns want Jimmy Butler. No surprise. Are the Heat interested in what the Suns would have to give them? No. Is any other team? Not really when it comes to a Bradley Beal trade. Are we looking at the same situation here where, look, Nick Richards, it may be a great fit for him in Phoenix. And the Suns would certainly love to have him. But do the Hornets want Yusuf Nurkic? And can the Suns attach enough draft capital to convince the Hornets to take on that salary? That's going to be the interesting piece. But certainly something to watch here. One of the more in-demand bigs on the market, and the Phoenix Suns are the team currently in hot pursuit. Everybody, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and go check out our latest video right now.